right, that was a nice presentation. Thank you. You've just heard Wilhelm Bromander play a small part as an introduction, and in this episode of Chain of Sounds we will speak about something that you will explain better, just intonation. Do you mind, Wilhelm, presenting yourself and just intonation?
Yes, my name is Wilhelm Bromander, and I spent a lot of time learning and investigating just intonation and how to incorporate this on the double bass in a solo context. And basically, if the short version of just intonation is that you intonate the intervals according to the harmonic series instead of a tempered system, which doesn't all the time. So I investigated the harmonic series and intonated intervals accordingly on the bass. Yes.
And while speaking about intonation and stuff, I have this album in my hand, and it's double priced actually, not in terms of money, but it has been priced twice. It won the Swedish Record of the Year in 23, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this forever unfolding moment, and then you even won another prize on
The Manifest.
the Manifest Gala.
Yeah.
Yes, great. And it shows your compositions in a multi-variety, I would say. Do you like to work with reed players?
Yes, I love reed players,
Yeah.
actually. I mean, when you have a lot of reeds players playing in unison and it becomes really loud but not hard for the ears, I love that sensation when it's really powerful. And that you only can get with reeds, I think, reeds and brass.
Yeah, there's a certain sound from the double reeds and the single reeds, of course, but yes. But when you compose, do you like start with the bass and up, or?
Usually I start with melody, and sometimes on the bass, sometimes on the piano, and then it kind of evolves in steps. Like I add some harmony, I add some different bass notes, maybe I have a bass line. It's like this evolving process of how the pieces develop.
Yeah. And being involved in the free music scene, I call free music scene. It doesn't necessarily has to be the free jazz, but does that open up for you in terms of coming from the just intonation thinking?
Yes, I guess so. And also, like, even on this record, maybe it's not so clear that I've been doing all these just intonation practices, or singing Drupad, or working with like North Indian classical drone music. But for me, when writing these pieces, I mean, I've been playing so much drone music. And also the care for melodic movement and small subtleties as intonation and ornaments. For me, that is really embedded in this music, even though it's not particularly just intonation in that sense, but it has a lot of the qualities or elements from that, I would say.
Yeah. One could easily think that you're kind of, in the outer area, but you're really keeping busy. I mean, you're really working and touring all the time, it seems.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you mind telling me a little bit about moving to Berlin? There were two reasons, we can say.
Yeah.
Actually, you were finishing your master.
Yeah.
And there was another reason.
Yeah, like I was doing my master's and did an exchange semester, and there is a composer in Berlin called Mark Sabat, and he's a fantastic just intonation composer. And he's also teaching there at UDK, or Universitet der Kunst. So that was one reason, but also the free jazz scene and all the fantastic musicians living in Berlin. I wanted to go there and see music and play with them, and yeah, so that was one of the big reasons, I would say. Yeah.
You were basically embraced immediately coming there, right?
Yeah, more or less. I was lucky because I had played with some musicians from Berlin here earlier on. So I had like these people that led me to different places. But also, I must say, it's since it's such a big town and a lot of people move there to do art, it's also like a kind of open community. So it's not so hard to get into as maybe Stockholm is, or some other place. So it was not so hard to ask people for sessions. Or
Nice. Are there any particular musicians you want to mention that, like, you created a certain relation with?
yeah, there's a clarinet player called Michel Tike, and also a piano player, Tisha Mukherjee, and Axel Dörner, and yeah, there's a few of them.
The bunch of them.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Indian music and singing.
Mm.
Did that change your approach to playing the double bass?
Yes, it did, but I actively wanted it to be separate at first. Like, I wanted to start studying Indian music and not incorporate on the bass. Like, that was my starting point. So I wanted to approach that music in a very respectful way, in the traditional way. So I was learning how to sing this a little bit. I mean, I'm still very much a beginner. But the whole experience of singing that music and the care for melodic movement and ornaments, and also the drone aspect of it, I would say it changed my playing a lot. I mean, very much. Like, for instance, a long time I didn't want to play with the vibrato or glissando on the bass. That was like one of the things that I thought that I wouldn't do, because it's a stereotype of double bass playing. And when I was starting to play, I didn't want to do that. But then after during the Drupal, I mean, I saw the beauty in all the glissandos, and like, also there's a nice philosophical aspect to in the Indian music, or the Drupal tradition, is that a note is not a fixed point, it's a space. So how you play with that space in terms of intonation and ornaments, that's the way the music can move. And that I still think that is really inspiring, and trying to figure my way out how to do that on the bass, or how to incorporate that in a aesthetically
I think
nice
you're
way.
touching like a big difference between West and East, right? In terms of that intonation space. Yeah, it's fantastic, because when I read your master exam PDF, I realize how much I don't know. You know, so. How do we transform the academic thoughts and mathematics divisions of a scale and of a note or whatever? How do we transform that into a sound at the live situation?
I think that's all about embodiment or tradition. Also, I mean, all these details are present in a lot of folk traditions, in, I mean, early jazz, even when it wasn't so much a fixed point, like the note or the blues or whatever. So you can, I mean, I tried in this work that I did in my master's, I actually tried to create etudes that allowed me to get this embodied knowledge of these sounds, that these theoretical sounds or whatever. But there is also, I mean, there's a big community for just intonation now, so it's also, as with all the music, you can listen to and meet people and learn, and through a community also. So
Trading experiences.
yeah,
So
I would say, and also some of them are just like a subtle shift in perception, like to start to listen to intonation or tuning, for instance, not as being right or wrong, but to start to hear the different vibrations, the different speeds, the interferences, the beats. If you have that perspective or done that shift, then it's kind of easy to start to tune like in a more just intonation way, because then your ears will tell you when it sounds like it's stable or when it's in phase lock, or so you can have this it can also be a very intuitive process.
you were training yourself in terms of singing drones and playing drones and experimenting, and there were some, as I experienced it, it was some touching moments where you realized you more or less dissolved in the sound, and that's incredibly impressive. I do you think you have to be like mentally more open to letting that happen, or did it just happen?
It's a hard question. I mean, I'm stuck in here, so I can't really say. But I would say that experience of dissolving in the sound, that was something that I felt was really rewarding. So I wanted to have that experience a lot. So I tried and to find situations where I did this, and with the instrument, I mean, somehow I felt it was easier with the voice, because you have this connection with the breath, and like it's your head vibrates, and it somehow makes the border between the sound going into your ears and the sound that you vibrate in your head and your body, it blurs a bit. But with the bass, it's like this, the source is outside of me, so it's harder to have that experience with the bass. I felt in the beginning, at least.
I should also mention that Wilhelm also is a soprano sax player. Your relation to like a treble instrument and a bass instrument, does that change anything in terms of how you think while you are improvising? This is a deep question, I know, but
yeah, it's a deep question and kind of tough one to answer also, because like all the things that one learns affects everything, more or less, all the time. So when you learn some harmony on the piano, that changes a bit of how you play, or when you, and also when playing an instrument that is strictly, but mainly a melodic instrument, that also changes, and also in terms of register. So I would say yes, it changes, but I don't know how, but I'm sure that it does.
yeah. If you would give me a suggestion right here and now, what to listen to from this album, I think we should put something.
I would say, since we have been talking about a bit about Drupad, I would say the first track on this, because it starts out with the tampura, the drone instrument, Indian drone instrument. Yeah. And then it's my fantastic teacher, Marianne Svasek, singing, and she's a Drupad singer, so she is fantastic. And there you can hear all this embodied knowledge about intonation, about ornaments, and about these different qualities of notes. And then the big band emerges, and then it becomes this powerful thing that we were talking about with the horns. So that's
so it's a title track in this forever unfolding moment.
Yes, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's listen a bit. Okay, it's fantastic music. I think you have to be, you know, open and just receive. Fantastic music. You did study with the principal of the Royal Opera in Stockholm, Mikael Karlsson.
Yes.
I met him and I know he's a fantastic pedagogue, but he's also a fantastic player, of course.
Yeah.
You don't keep that kind of gig if you're not a fantastic player.
No, you don't get it in the first place
No,
either.
exactly. What do you think? What do you have to say about the relation, learning from Mikael?
It was just fantastic. I mean, with the bow technique and yeah, also all his knowledge that he possesses, he is able to express and say like, do a little bit like this, and then immediately it sounds better. So it was a privilege to have him as a teacher for my technique, and also nice to learn some classical repertoire. I think it's also because like in some ways like the jazz-based tradition, it's there, but it's like all these different persons play different ways, and that's fantastic. But there is, at least I feel that it's not so much that you have this big tradition of how to learn the instrument, how to play, how with the classical music it's really like, here, this is the repertoire, this is how you move the bow, this is how it functions. It's very clear, you know.
Yeah.
And also how to embrace the bass. So
was it during that time you realized you practicing with a tuner and realized that you had different pitches from down bows and up bows?
that was more like with when I started to, but it was the same period when I was doing really went deep down into the just intonation.
Yeah. So what
hole.
happened when you realized, you know, you needed a tuner to see the difference more than hearing the difference, right? Or?
Yeah, I would say it helped, both of them, but it's also like when I played an interval and I tuned it, and then suddenly I changed the bow, and then it didn't sound in tune anymore. And like the finger was there, it was the same, so it had to be something else. And that was kind of a revelation to me, that the bow actually affected so much, and also that it's kind of beautiful because it's all relational and vibrations. So it's not like you get this point here and then it's in tune. It's like the relation between bow speed and how I move, how I breathe, how I stand. It's like all this. It's like a dance almost, and it's so it's also to be open for that relational aspect of playing, that the instrument has its own like agenda, the bow has, and then I try to do this and the room does something. So it's also to acknowledge that and not try to control it too much, but to allow the difference and the dance of these different agencies.
So did you spend a lot of time working with that?
With the bow?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. since I spent a lot of time just playing these just intonation intervals, like 2-3 hours a day. I only played like double stops with open strings, so that was. Then I worked with the bow speed also a lot. I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, we could simplify that with, you know, we have the speed, the pressure, and the placing, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of, but it's a game, right? Because the acoustic plays some bad games sometimes.
yeah,
of course.
and also like the strings are different width also, so they even though we think we have the same bow pressure and same bow speed when playing on two strings, they need actually a different kind of pressure or speed to get the same sound.
Exactly.
So it's very complex, and also it becomes more like if I guess it's I like to know about these things and like think about them, but it's also this embodied knowledge again, like just doing and see now it sounds nice, now it sounds right. Yeah.
Do you have any examples that you can show me?
With intervals or
Yeah.
yeah. Let me just change my bass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still a lot of things going on with the bow change, but it's getting better.
I think everybody who at least one time in his or her life has hold a bow knows exactly what we are into here. Yeah. So it takes a couple of hours. It takes hundreds and hundreds of hours to get this working, of course. And then it changed depending on instruments and strings and so on. So it's a never-ending story, of course. But in your master PDF, and we will put the link out there, even if it's written mainly in Swedish, but there are some really interesting sketches as well. And in terms of creating sounds, you have like made a little chart of the different possibilities of
Yeah, I tried to make I was inspired by this fantastic piano player Magda Mayas. She did a doctorate in Gothenburg where she did a sonic map of all her sounds, and she's a fantastic inside piano and with preparations and stuff. So I tried to see what is the material that I use when I improvise, and how can I connect them in new ways, because I noticed that when I played here, maybe I usually went and did blow in the F hole or whatever.
Yeah.
So I had like different habits of using materials. So that was the first thing that I wanted to see if I could connect them differently when improvising to create other kinds of possibilities. So I did this sonic map, and it's like different categories like flashlets or pizzicato, overpressure, multiphonics, yeah, different, like playing with clams, and yeah, overpressure.
It's like a preparated bass, like a preparated piano, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I sometimes when I play, I still use the clams, and I really like them.
Okay, yeah. Overpressure, is that a left-hand thing?
I would say it's a right-hand thing. I can demonstrate on my other bass here. It's
Yeah.
a little bit easier with the gut strings, but are you prepared? It's kind of harsh. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So by using overpressure here in the right hand, you can get the string to vibrate at a lower speed than the regular pitch. You get an octave below, or sometimes, yeah, even more. So it's and that I worked with a lot, and I have a piece on my solo double bass album called Oak Tree that is entirely based on this kind of playing.
Oak Tree. Okay, let's see. There are some. Okay, flageolet. It's harmonics,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
To investigate where the different nodes are, like that was interesting, because like the first harmonic here, it's only on one place, but then this is on 2, and this is 4, and then yeah,
It's mirrored. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
it is.
So in the middle of the swinging string, you have like the same
Yeah.
tonal series in.
So it opens up a lot for, like, if you want to play melodic with doubles. With double stops and play the string. And then it's really nice to investigate these different positions, because it opens up new harmonic possibilities.
Yeah, and then we're back to the bow
Yeah.
speed and
Yeah,
pressure
yeah.
and whatever.
All this, yeah.
So you have to be well prepared,
Yeah.
of course. And let's see, what else do we have? Overpressure, multiphonics, yes.
Yeah.
Multiphonics. What is multiphonics?
Yeah, multiphonic is when you have. I mean, there are different parts, and there is also this Norwegian bass player called Håkon Thelin. He made a wonderful doctorate about multiphonics on the double bass. But basically, it's when you get the string to ring at more pitches at the same time. So one way is the easiest is. By playing with a lot of pressure near the bridge, but it's also possible. Let me see if I can get hold of this. Quite easy.
Yeah, so here we are speaking about the relation between where you put the bow,
Yeah.
and which speed and which.
Yeah, so it's like you have to have the bow on a specific place, and you have to have the speed, and then you have to break the string. So what happens is is that you get this string, part of the string vibrating, this part of the string vibrating, and this part of the string vibrating as 3 different strings, and then you get these different notes at the same time.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of delicate.
Very delicate.
Yeah.
If you hear someone warming up, I can mention that we are recording this in a space where Wilhelm is sharing a collective with freelance musicians sharing this place. So if you hear someone warming up with vocal exercises, it's exactly what it is. So you started with Joe Williamson as well.
Yes. He's a fantastic improviser, and also he was a big influence on me playing a solo double bass. He has a wonderful developed extended technique vocabulary, and also has played with everybody in the free jazz scene, both in Canada and the US and here in Europe. So yeah, that was a fantastic. We just met and played and talked about music, and
wonderful. Yeah. I can mention as well when my first lesson with Palle Danielsson many years ago, I stayed for 2 days. So I mean, speaking about music with a mentor could usually be as important as playing.
Yes.
Sometimes. Yeah. You spent, I think you mentioned when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about that you did also a deep dive into Charlie Haydn.
Yes, that's still a very much deep dive into Charlie Haydn. I mean, also like in relation to what I was talking about earlier with the Drupal, like tone as a space and working with the left hand. I mean, Charlie Haydn's left hand is fantastic. Everybody, I don't know, maybe he has this reputation kind of like Monk, that he didn't have a good technique or whatever, but nobody gets the sound out of the bass as Charlie Haydn. And how he works with slides and vibrato and melody, and like to really get the instrument to sing. It's fantastic. So I mean, he's by far my biggest influence.
He's been like a reference in terms of a huge sound. You know, we speak about oh, I would like to have that. You know, Charlie Haydn sound. You know, it's like a reference, or of course Ray Brown sound and stuff. So if we will wrap this up finally, what are your next plans?
The next plans is the next week we're recording a new album. Hopefully it will become an album with the Unfolding Orchestra. So I'm working, like spending these last few days learning my own songs and how to play them in a decent way. So that is my next project. Then is summer playing Copenhagen Jazz Festival, different stuff, and then in the autumn we're going to play with Unfolding Orchestra at the Berlin Jazz Festival, and also some other shows coming up. So that's a big focus for me now.
I wish you the best of luck, and I'm so happy that you took your time. I know I was looking at the watch. I know you're on the run and for a next project. So pleasure to meet you, and maybe, who knows, we'll come back with part 2.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.